my name is Katrin Inga Jonsdottir Hjordisardottir.
That's longer than most.
Yes.
Okay. There's an extra daughter.
Yes. So Jonsdottir is my father.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Jón.
Obviously.
And my mother name is Hjördis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Hjordisardottir.
So you have both your mother's name and your father's name.
Yes, exactly.
Is that normal?
No, it is not normal.
I thought not. That's why I was so surprised.
Yeah, but it is becoming more and more, normal today. I think it is like maybe 15 years since I added my mom into my ownership. Yeah, and then I was married also for some time as well, and I added his, surname as well. It's a system, For me, it's like a statement, like if one is supposed to own me, then, why not give the ownership to everyone, So it was my parents and my husband, that had the claim on me. But I had this kind of complex, sensation about my name for a long time, since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I even was like brainstorming on, making my own surname for quite a while. So I have a thing. Yeah. But now I'm very happy.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing because like the whole daughter-son stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very regional thing. But like even my wife in the Czech Republic,
Mm-hmm.
they have ova at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the names for women,
Mm-hmm.
which translates in English to owned by or property of.
Exactly.
And I told my wife, I was like, you are not doing that when we get married because I do not own you or you're not my property.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fascinating sort of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's slightly sexist.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is interesting, So, for example, my boys are referring to me as well, I really needed that, to claim their ownership as well, not just giving it all to their father.
So your sons have taken on your name.
And their fathers. So, yeah. Because I have this kind of, I had the problem with accepting that somebody, this ownership or this kind of idea of, it was a part of me, like creating myself or I mean, I thought I was always, finding myself, but then of course, you create yourself, but I didn't realize that until I was quite older, like David Bowie says as well, you create yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I heard that a little bit earlier, because I spent like very long time like finding myself, when you just create yourself, it would make things so much easier.
I'm still finding myself. It's fine.
But if you tell yourself that you're going to create yourself, it gives you a little bit more freedom, right?
It gives you a little bit more ownership over it. Yeah,
exactly.
Power towards it. Because sometimes it can feel quite powerless.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult position to be in for anybody.
Yeah. If you create yourself, then the responsibility is somehow in your hand. But if you're finding yourself, it's like never-ending story. It's not like certain that you will go. But if you create yourself, then I don't know, it feels more comfortable or truth or...
Well, I mean, it's an interesting dilemma because like as artists in this day and age, there's the nature of like social media, branding, and these kinds of like defining yourself and creating yourself.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Now they have it right,
Well, that's the question is like, is that the right way to go? Or is that like a thing created by, mega corporations?
I understand.
Like, I don't know. I'm not sure.
So we are losing the romantic sensation.
I'm a romantic. Yeah, I like the romantic stuff. Like I wish I was an artist in like 1920s Paris, hanging out in the cafes, just like talking rebellion and all kinds of crazy shit.
I understand.
That's my lifestyle that I wish for.
I would not want to be there because, has identified by as a woman, it would have been very harder than it is today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, the gender nature of the arts historically is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, gender, race, all the different kinds of things. I mean, even gays, homosexuality, all these kinds of things. Like, I mean, the amount of problems that have existed and to a certain extent still exist in certain parts of the industry and certain parts of the world is horrible.
Yeah.
And I could never sit here and be like, oh, I understand what you're going through. I will never know what you're going through. I am a white, male, privileged American. Like, I am everything wrong with the arts world.
Yeah, or you have the power also to change it, you know.
And I'm trying.
Totally. Just by being aware of it and putting a light on it, that's already like stepping, you know, I don't want to say right direction, because what is right, but at least I feel more positive direction.
I always hope to be going in a positive direction. Yes, yeah. But let's go back a little bit. So how did you come to being creative in the first place? Were your parents creative? Like, what was your sort of pathway into the arts?
That's a very good question. The school system pretty much like destroyed me.
I'm sorry.
I am dyslexic, and then later on I realized I have a ADHD. It's very common
as
for
we all do.
Creative, you know, people. I have been like building myself up ever since, you know. It's like I didn't feel good, you know, in the school, in my teenage years especially. So I even stopped like trying.
It does that.
Yeah, so I never went to like high school. So when I was 16, when I finished the school, you know, like elementary and
16 is the end of that?
In Iceland.
Like, I graduated high school at 17.
Yeah, exactly. And then you went to
college.
Yeah, so I never went to college.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different here in Iceland.
But I graduated young. Most people in America would graduate high school at 18.
Yeah.
Because of my birthday, I ended up, it's a long, stupid story, but yeah.
Exactly.
Most people would be 18.
Yeah, exactly. You have this kind of high school and then college, and then you go to university.
College and university is kind of the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, the difference between college and university is actually the scale. So like a college is small quantity of students. University is a large quantity of students, but it's the same education.
Ah, okay, I understand.
Because like I went to, was my undergraduate was at a university.
Yeah.
But then I went to a college for my master's.
Yeah.
So it was because the quantity of students.
I understand. Okay.
That's an American thing, though. That's not a worldwide thing. So, like, I'm sure the system's different elsewhere.
Yeah. In Iceland, we have this kind of school that you need to finish.
Yeah, like a preparatory school kind of thing.
And then we have this in between before you go to university, before you go to bachelor and then master.
I wish we had something like that.
So it's like 4 years that, you know, people go from 16 to 20 normally.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. To prepare for the bachelor.
Holy shit. All right. Good. Great.
So I never attended that part because I was never going to school again. But then around 23, I got accepted in the University of Art. Mm-hmm. So I started my bachelor then. But then I've been like experimenting myself with various art forms. When I was 16, I was going to be an artistic photographer. So I started making photographing. And then I went into like filmmaking. I was doing a lot of like short films, you know, with a group of friends because I got in love with Italian boy artist here in Iceland when I was like 16, 17. And I moved with him to Milan and I was there for 3 years and then we broke up and then I moved to London. And I was there for 3 years as well, doing various art. Like I did a lot of like, I was like on the unemployed benefit in London. And then I could take like free courses in London College of Printing, like intense like summer courses or weekend courses or evening courses. And I took like screen printing, production, various sound software and screenwriting. Yeah, various like short courses.
Wait a second. Hold on. Wait. You're an Icelandic citizen that went to the UK, London.
Yeah.
And you got unemployment benefits?
Yeah, because...
And you were able to take free classes?
Yeah, because Iceland has this kind of... we are in the UA, so that was before, Brexit. We are talking about like obviously, 2000, 2001, 2, and 3. I started in Icelandic Academia, the University of Art in Iceland in 2005, and then I was 23. And then I had already been like traveling. I also stayed for some shorter time in Copenhagen. So I was just finding myself, obviously.
Bit of a vagabond lifestyle.
Yeah, I was like, that was the time period where I was like finding myself and finding my, creative voice. When I was like 13, 14, 15, having a very hard time in my school. I thought I was just stupid, I couldn't learn things because with HDSD, you need to understand things. You need to talk about things in a philosophy terms. It's a different way of learning. And what they were teaching in the elementary school was not the way for me to learn. And I didn't, get help that I needed, at least not enough to help me from not believing that I was just stupid.
Unfortunately, that is the academic system. They want to put you into some sort of pigeonholed thing of like, good at this, bad at that, good with this, whatever. And unfortunately, oftentimes it sticks with you. Like if one teacher or one administrator like puts you on a troubled student list, suddenly you are that for the rest of your academic career. I was on that list. So like, I'm just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Because my brother, I have an older brother.
Yeah.
We went to the same schools growing up. He was even worse of a troublemaker.
Okay.
And so when I came in, they already labeled me as a troublemaker.
Oh my God.
Because of my brother.
Oh.
And he was dyslexic.
Yeah. And I mean, back then, I got tested for dyslexic, when I went into university. Because then I also was more, it was more like in the air, people were talking about this more. So I thought like, oh, this sounds very much like, my experience.
My reality.
Yeah. So I was actually not qualified to go into the University of Art because I didn't have the formal studies,
Right.
But I could get in with my portfolio because I've been doing a lot of stuff. And then I was also taking some courses in London College of Printing. That is college, university.
Credit, yeah.
So I managed to get in there just for outstanding, creativity. And that was very good. And then when I came into the school and I learned for the first time, I was sitting in a class and we had a lot of philosophy and art history because it is a BA, so it's like 60 practical versus 40, academic.
Well, it's also British, and they're very much like that.
Yeah, the Icelandic university.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's a BA, BFA. Sorry, it's BFA.
BA is Bachelor of the Arts. BFA is Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Exactly.
BFA is generally perceived as a higher degree.
Yeah.
BA is a bit more of a general. Because oftentimes a BFA is a BFA in photography or a BFA in sculpture, whereas a BA is just a BA.
Okay. So this BFA
Great.
thing, yeah. Because I took MA in New York and that was much more practical,
But I think that a lot of that is the difference between cultures. Because I've had discussions where people in America are more, I'm trying to think about which way it goes. Like one of them is more about critiques. I think it's America is more about critiques and sort of the critical feedback in the classroom, whereas Europe is a lot more conceptual and theoretical versus critique sessions and feedback and that kind of stuff. And they're just different cultural ways of teaching, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which is better or worse, but, they're not the same, basically.
Yeah.
Did you have the similar sort of experiences of the differences between Icelandic art school and an American art school?
School of Visual Art is often referred as a kind of the father of our department here in fine art. Because it is small and it's very, multimedia, orientated, and everyone kind of, has the freedom to create their own, stuff is yet,
Which is a question I had about you and your work as well. I come from my master's degree was in new genre art, which is basically interdisciplinary multimedia, whatever you kind of think you want to call it. But your work, from what I saw, so like keep in mind I did a little research ahead of time, but I try not to do too much because I don't want to come in too informed. But you seem to you work in lots of different mediums and stuff, and sort of based on whatever the idea you're trying to express, which is great. I'm all for it.
True.
But my question is, has that been to your benefit or slightly to your detriment in some ways? Because I would imagine it's difficult because when you're applying for a grant or a residency or any sort of funding or project things, like you can't tick a box that says I'm a photographer or a painter or some sort of medium-based thing.
Yeah, and now I'm also understanding it's also hard to collect my shit because it's hard to categorize it into one shelf.
Right.
So but I don't know, maybe I'm positive, but I believe, it will maybe hopefully benefit me in the long term. And also I'm just following my heart. So I'm always true to what I feel I need to want to do. So I'm not forcing myself into this chaotic, way of creating. It comes very natural. Maybe this is also part of being HCSD, It's like, but yeah, what I realized also when I came into the academy in the end, I back into school system. I realized first how much I love it. I became a fan of theory classes, for example. I took more extra, courses than I needed. I was scoring high grades, even with my, essays and stuff, I was doing very good. I always needed to ask my people around me that were capable of it to read through my text, because I did not have that much experience, and then I had ADHD, so I needed always someone to read through my text. But so when I handed in, I always I got it good, but I had to make an effort to make it good, to get my thoughts out of my brain in a proper way. But it's one of my first ideas when I was 16. It was a conceptual idea, multimedia thing. It was called a brain machine. And it was literally just about the idea of connecting your brain through the machine, and the machine will read your thoughts exactly how it comes. And the point of that was it was very chaotic. I want ice cream. Oh, this bird is very nice. Oh, I really need to change my, just literally how we, think. So I made a screenplay about it. And it was a dialogue with an artist and a kid, and the kid was asking a very simple question, but very important question. So it has been very much haunting me, You want to create something and you want to express it, interpret it for the viewer or the reader. It's a challenging thing. And then, with a lack of confidence because, the system had kind of break you down. So you're also in this kind of a dilemma,
Well, but that's the eternal challenge of being any sort of creative person. So whether you're a writer, musician, whatever, you have an idea in your head and you're I want to express this. And then trying to find not only a balance where it meets your own need kind of thing. So whatever, expression you want to do, but also that a balancing act so that the viewer comprehends it. Because like I've come up with dozens and dozens of ideas that like when I showed them to somebody, I'm like, it's about this, and they're like, yeah, I don't see it at all. They just
exactly.
No.
They see something else.
Yeah.
But that is also often what makes people afraid of this kind of contemporary art, because it is always new. It is something. It's even new for you. You haven't seen it. You haven't put any.
If you're doing something good, new,
and you don't have a word to describe it. I often, because I did a lot of reading when I had my kids. I was studying like how the cognitive revolution of the brain works, and how the upbringing can affect you both, like also understanding myself, and trying to make it better for them, because I didn't want them to be ending up like 20 years old with a very lack of self-confidence, or, just the idea of thinking you are stupid is just very uncomfortable and unnecessary. And you spend your time in too much, towards something that is just like stopping you to move forward, So it would be very nice to not have that. So what I learned from that research is that, for example, and I often use it in explaining, contemporary art, because for the first 3 years of a child, we don't have any, words to describe our senses, what we are sensing. But we see, we smell, we eat, we touch, But then later there comes the word. And I often refer it to contemporary art, that you always need this kind of 3 years to crystallize what you're seeing with words, So when I could like speculate that idea, I became more understanding or more like easy on me. Like, okay, it's okay, Katrin, you don't know what you're doing. Just follow your guts, it is something that you just, because it's just like you need to do something and you can't justify it.
Well, and I agree with what you're saying, but there's a balancing act that I find on that, because like in the end, and this is going to sound horrible and obviously very American perspective on this, but like, you still need to make a living.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, whether it means taking another job or whether it means trying to find grants or whatever it is, like you can only push so far, and you can only work for so long, sort of testing, trying, though whatever, before you have to create a finished result of some sort, or else people are going to think you're not actually making anything, kind of stuff. Like, so there's these weird benchmarks that are sort of necessary in the arts industry, where like you have to be exhibiting or getting a grant or going to a residency or whatever that says you have completed something, or you have met a stepping stone.
Yeah, no, I'm totally agree. I mean, I complete things and I exhibit it, and I can express myself with the words that I have, but don't put too much pressure on me. I allow myself to think like I can change, perspective on it later, or, it is not the end of the world. I can add some words on the way.
So you'll change, like, so like if you make, let's say you exhibit a piece or a performance or whatever it is, and let's say you have a statement that's on the wall with it, kind of thing. You're saying that like 3-5 years later, you will change that statement?
Yes, especially with the work I was doing in 2019 or 2017, 19, 18 or something. I was obsessed about virus and self-love. Yeah, like self-love virus. I was like, and that is also like self-love, because I've been like healing myself and sharing it with the viewers. I've done also various like self-healing, performances, And around this time I was very I was like, cellulose virus. So I did this kind of cellulose virus, monument sculpture. So I was thinking about like in the future, this is where the mankind will, remember when the mankind got self-love virus or injected, I was like thinking like, what will happen if we would just like all get self-love virus like injected in our body? And then COVID came.
I was going to say, kind of didn't work.
Yeah. And COVID came, and and that piece totally kind of have changed because the society changed. So now when I talk about virus, people listen in a totally different way than before, because people have totally different kind of experience and understanding, and it's more close to them. So thinking about virus before COVID, it was so distant. But now it is so present, so people can more relate to the idea of what if, Because I did also like a BA in art theory and history after my art practice. And then I went to master in fine art because I became very interested in theory. And I'm planning to do a doctorate degree, but I don't know, talking about like living and stuff like that. I mean, it all costs, I own like a lot of millions Icelandic kronas, in student loan.
I sort of assumed that education was free, sort of socialized. Like you all actually have to pay for your education? Yeah,
I mean, the fine art is one of the most expensive,
oh, I know.
Studies,
I'm still paying my student loan off. I get it.
And in Iceland too.
Really?
Yeah.
For some odd reason, my crazy romantic idea was that you all had like free education.
No, maybe Denmark or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely Denmark. Yeah.
But not in Iceland. You pay for everything here with your student loans. And then I did my master in America, and that was very expensive, even though I got Fulbright. And some
but just
other
living in New York, I mean, shit, that's expensive. So, part of the student loan I'm still paying off is like the rent I paid living in San Francisco.
Yeah. We will live in Brooklyn, and it costed a lot. It's not very practical, studying art, but
Nope.
but you just, I can't do anything else,
Agreed. I'm the same way.
It's like a, it's like a curse or something, it's like, you can't do anything.
I'd like to phrase it more as a gift.
Yeah, gift. Yeah. It's
curse
gift.
Sounds negative.
Yeah.
Try me a gift. I mean, I'm constantly like, my wife is an accountant, so she's like very factual, 9 to 5, like, and I'm just like, I need to go make something. Like, I don't know what I need to make, but I need to be making stuff. And if I'm not, I'm very depressed.
But maybe it's a curse in one part of categorizing it, and then gift, maybe a little bit like your statement,
Well, we're a curse on society.
So we are a fool, and we are also,
wise. Yes.
Yeah, wise.
Yes, that's the name. That's why I chose it.
Yeah. So it is pretty much that. I mean, it is very much what it crystallizes everything,
Well, I mean, this lifestyle is both the most beautiful and enjoyable lifestyle and also one of the most difficult and sort of foreign to most people. So like, I love it and am sort of depressed by it depending on the day and the experience. Too many times I'll go out and I'll be like talking with people, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an artist. And they're like, oh, and like conversation ends. But at other times I'll be out and I'll be like, oh, I'm an artist. And people are like, really? What do you make? Like, and they actually want to. So like it can be both a curse or a blessing depending on the perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And also the art itself, it can be wise and foolish, in the same time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going back to what you were talking about like sort of what I call like time and distance, like almost every project I do, I'll make a project, I'll work on it 3-5 years, whatever. And at the end of it, of course, we're obligated to write some sort of statement about it. Like, say, like, I'm done with this. Here's an exhibition. Here's a statement. But then I feel like after about 5 years later, I then have time, distance, and wisdom and hindsight to look back and go, oh, no, that project was not about that at all. It was actually about this other thing that was going on that I just didn't have enough perspective on yet. All the time, all of my artwork, like, in hindsight, I understand it much better because of like life experiences that were going on that you were sort of still involved in. So you didn't have enough perspective on it. But boy, some time really can give you a much better insight on your own artworks for sure.
And I mean, it is also like a lifetime, like research, an experiment, inventing, we are inventing something. And we're also creating a new language, I mean, I have my own language, my own dictionary. So it always takes a little time to see the thread, where it's going to, what this is leading to. But you need to kind of keep reminding yourself to be kind of patient and gentle
I am
to
the
yourself.
least gentle person on myself. I am the hardest critic I have ever been.
Yeah, that can tear you apart, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm trying to learn to...
Literally, I know exactly what you mean.
I always tell myself, or I'm trying always to remind myself, it's like I have a mantra. Always when I'm working towards a performance or exhibition or something, where I need to, show my shit, and stand by it. I always have my heart, like pumping very fast. And I'm always like, it's okay. It is only art. It's not the end of the world. Just like, it's just like keep telling myself that, just do not kill myself. I mean, not literally, but I often find myself like, being somehow a masochist.
I do know. Yes. We are all that to ourselves. Like, I can't tell. I've had exhibitions where I'll put it up and I'll be like, this is the turning point for my career. Like, this is the thing that's going to get me to that next step, that next level in my career. And then nothing happens.
Exactly.
And it's just like, oh.
Yeah. And then you need to have a little bit of like being this kind of the risk taker, or like the person who is drawn to adrenaline, like...
adrenaline junkie.
Yes. Something, I think a lot of creative people are like that, because like, for example, now I literally have maybe just 1,000 kronas, like I just bought food for my boys and have nothing. It's first of the month tomorrow. So I know I get I have an Icelandic art salary now for...
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But I didn't have it like for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's been very hard, like social benefit, unemployment benefit, you're done with that, you can't get more of that than a social benefit. And then always like working towards getting grants, and then always like manifesting, secreting someone coming and want to buy all your stuff, like I have read about this kind of deep collectors, they are there, like people who collect like deep from artists, like coming up and coming, like buying a lot, like keeping them alive, until the markets kicks in.
Patrons.
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
We are all looking for patrons.
And then, I'm also like, I also buy lotto, lottery. Lotto.
Really?
Yeah.
You do lottery, huh?
Yeah, like Viking, Viking lotto. I mean, some people have won like 400 Icelandic millions.
I don't know what that translates to, but just because it has the word million, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I could buy this building.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a difficult thing, like that whole nature of like, we always want to sell our work, but like to a certain extent, like your work is very, I would imagine, difficult to quote unquote like sell or quantify or commodify in some way, because like you work in performance, but you have the ability to like document it, so then the documentation can become a thing of it on itself. But still, like, I admire Europe and European sort of mentality, because I love the nature that like you all basically, you come up with great ideas and then you get funded to produce it. So like your artist salary, even like, so like they've said, we appreciate and respect what you do. So we'll give you a salary so that you can continue doing what you do. In America, we don't have shit like that.
Yeah, New York used to have it back in the 1920s. That's why.
Back in the 1920s.
Your year, your romantic year.
My romantic year.
That's why New York became what it is, because they had this kind of creative city, salary. Yeah, because I studied there, so I could a little bit understand it. Like. Many of my classmates, they were like American art student. I found it very different coming from Iceland because we don't have this market. I mean, there's so few people that collect art
in Iceland.
In Iceland. So I went into my bachelor, studies. I did a lot of performances, like relating to, selling art. Like once I took, because I do like sculptures and prints and all stuff. So like one performance I did, I went to a company, like stock market company in Iceland back in 2009. Just after the economic crisis, I took like 32 prints that I made, like lithography. But it was a mono because I made some drawing on it as well. So nothing was the same, but it's from the same area. And I took it into this company. It's called Auður Capital. I took it and I just asked the staff on the desk if I could spontaneously, like give a little performance, just 10, 50 minutes. And they were so open and keen. So they gathered all the stuff into the conference room. And I had this kind of performance speak where I was like literally selling myself as an interesting phenomenon to invest in, So I said, like, I have here 32 mono prints for sale, and each one costs 500 krona. That's literally just like, like $4.
That's like a hot dog.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you can hardly buy a latte for it, And then I was on my way to the master in New York sooner. So I knew I was going there. So it's like, okay, I finished my bachelor and I'm going to master, and I just finished exhibiting in some gallery that there I was installing. So. But I just really wanted to do this performance ever since I was in school in 2007. But I didn't have the, courage, the gut to do it until that moment. I don't know. I was just taking it down. I was driving from the gallery with my stuff, and I just decided just to drive to this company, park it, and just try it. And they bought the whole thing, like stuff. And the company bought also, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something. So I was doing a lot of this kind of performances related to that. Like, you can invest in this, and if you invest in it, just by investing in it, you're increasing the value of it straight away. You know what I mean? That is how it works. So the power in the investor is so much, It's not like you're investing in some company and then, you don't know, if it will work or not. You know what I mean? But if you invest in the artist and you keep investing in it, you can make it happen.
Well, there's also the interesting nature of like, if somebody were like, so you said you took 32 prints there. If all 32 prints were sold, every single one of them has now gone up in value.
Oh yeah,
because there's no more on the market.
Yes.
And so just by that nature, but just by the nature of the fact that basically you sold out at the edition,
exactly,
they have already increased in price and value. Like, the whole system of the arts world is so, like, I wish I understood this stuff at a younger age. Like, I get it now because, like, I'm a photographer is my background. And so like, we were always like, oh, make big editions so that you can have lots to sell and all this kind of stuff. And then like now with the insight and knowledge I have now, I'd be like, I wish I could go back and be like, no. You make 3.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because limited, the less available the higher the value, and the more you quote unquote like sell out, so like finish the run of whatever you've produced and there are no more available, the more valuable you are and any next thing you make is. And I'm like, holy fuck, it makes so much more sense now.
And then it's very important for you to make a two artist proof.
Of
because
course.
the gallery cannot take it when you're old and
and keep one for yourself, you know.
So you can sell it. It's your pension.
Well, yes, or you can, you know, keep it for your museum that you're going to donate to.
I see it as a pension.
I see it as a legacy. It will be the thing that will be part of a collection that I will then donate, so that like after my death, I will be able to be researched. And so therefore I will be able to be part of the future art canon. This is my arrogance, that I really think that I'm this important.
That is also what keeps you going.
You kind of have to be
you need to have this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a line to like confidence to arrogance. You know, like I'm confident that over the course of my lifetime, I have done something that will impact the art world. Maybe I've done it already. Maybe I still am going to do it. But I'm confident in that. Now,
I mean, it's like one performance I did in 2017. It was an old idea where I did proposal to the art center to represent Iceland in the Venice Biennial, you know. But I wasn't selected, but I still wanted to do this idea. So I got a little grant and I did it. And it was about like, it was based on my master thesis project, you know, Art We Learn. But I invited Icelandic fishermen that really don't understand contemporary art and really hates it and just like, why is my tax money going into this yet, you know? And inviting him over for 4 days course in understanding contemporary art. So we walked through the biennial, you know, and we had this talk. So I filmed it. So it's like a, you know, like a artist documentary, you know. I still haven't exhibited, you know, but it is there. So the idea was just like try to flip him, to make him understand that, you know, because what you're saying is like, I believe that even though you never go to a museum or you never see contemporary art, it still infects your everyday life because it infects the society, it affects, you know, the whole thing. And it's very important for, you know, cognitive revolution of the humankind and everything, you know, just to understand ourselves as a humankind and also train ourselves, you know. It's like, it's not just about like the Greek philosophers, you know, they knew it. They were like training the soul and the body in the same time. Art's supposed to be part of our healthcare system because you need to train your body and your brain too. Because as much as you see things new, you develop new brain cells and it makes you happy and it makes you think and it is part of healthy lifestyle. So it's very important.
Agreed.
And so I brought this fisherman to Venice and it is a lot of vanity in it because of course, you know, he said yes to a free trip to Venice and the project paid for his trip and sleeping arrangement, you know. But he had to just pay his food himself, you know.
Sure.
I didn't have the money for that. We had long days and we talked a lot. And in the end of the days, he was always so tired. But it was so beautiful talk. Especially like I remember one, and it was his favorite thing we saw the show by Damien Hirst, you know. He was exhibiting this kind of epic sculpture.
The like, underwater stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was very, you know, people were a lot talk about it, you know, because of the complexity of, you know, he said it was been laying on the bottom, blah, blah, blah. And people were furious about it, you know. And I was explaining this to the fisherman and he was just like, nah, this is nothing compared what we do every day, you know. So here's information, and he totally understood it, and he came with a very good, you know, into it, you know, and that could totally make us understand. And Damien Hirst totally made the point there from that point of view.
I love that Damien Hirst
Exactly.
series. I think it was because it was like a complete immersion. Like he made a convincing story from the beginning to the end of like this entire civilization that had been lost and all that. Like the devotion to the story. Like I admire that. Any artist that puts that much sort of thought, planning, and like background and everything, like I love those sorts of immersive experiences like that, even if it's complete bullshit.
Exactly, and we learned a lot about it. We learned a lot from this, phenomenon, from this action. And then in the end of the day, I decided to pay for water taxi for the last scene because I thought it was like monumental, like me and him sitting together. And then he came to the harbor. We were waiting, and then I saw he was in a t-shirt, new t-shirt he bought, in the end of the day before, after I said goodbye. And he came and he's like, yeah, see my, t-shirts, He bought a t-shirt with this famous drawing from Da Vinci, the man, the
Vitruvian Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this is very cool. And then I straight away thought about like speculating, him. So I said to him, like, okay, for example, you see, we were talking like about, we were summarizing everything. And I said like, yeah, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, he was working on Mona Lisa and nobody knew about that while he was working on it. And it didn't become this kind of phenomenal piece until much later. I mean, imagine you being my Mona Lisa. And I'm Da Vinci, Nobody, we are doing this now, but we can't see the value of it now. And he totally understood it.
I know. It's such a sad state of affairs, though, that like so many creative people, so I'm not even going to say just visual artists, but like writers, musicians, all kinds of different people, but like they only suddenly become admired, respected, whatever, after their death. And not even like necessarily like right after their death, but maybe even like a decade or a century later, they're like found out and suddenly they're like, like Van Gogh, I mean, in his lifetime, nobody gave a shit.
Yeah. And his brother was the only one who bought all his stuff just to keep him alive.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's such a sad state of affairs that like that artists are only appreciated in hindsight. Well, I shouldn't say only. There are many that are appreciated in their lifetime, but too many. It takes too long to find appreciation for them.
That is because I think it's like when it comes to contemporary art, we are like, we are within this 3 years old, age of our, understanding. So the whole society and ourselves, we always need time to value things,
I do know. Yeah, because like my family, my parents are getting old, and there are things and objects in their house that like when in my youth I didn't appreciate and I didn't respect enough, and like now I'm like, oh, that thing, like boy, like I don't want to lose that, I don't want that to be whatever lost in the future kind of thing. Like it's very interesting how time and perspective and hindsight can change the value of something.
Exactly. And that's why also like we need to like also be able to rewrite the history from, like just with the Me Too, we are getting so many different kind of way of understanding or categorizing things. So we need to be able to look back and revalue and rewrite our history,
Absolutely.
And I find it also very much like being, mother for the first time, but I'm also like doing my parenting, based on how I was parenting, and I'm trying to do, better, but still I make different, mistakes,
The story of life, yes.
Now you're more like aware of the importance of saying like, sorry, I made a mistake. I'm not perfect. All this kind of new way of living in the nowness, you know.
Oh yeah, in my youth, you know, parents were perceived as perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just societally accepted. Like, parents are perfect.
And what does that do to us, you know?
Yeah, it makes us always feel imperfect.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I could not do right for many decades.
Yeah. And then you're always like speculating that also on contemporary art, accepting that being perfect. But once the society understands that, you know, contemporary art is not perfect, you know, and they're more like, I don't know, more humble towards it, I think, then they're also more humble to themselves. Because, for example, if you're very criticized to yourself, you're very criticized to others.
Oh yes, I criticize others all the time.
Exactly. And that is something to work on. Starting on yourself.
Yes, I know. My wife tells me that all the time.
And it's like, because then you can't see the value of things, because you have this kind of sick love relationship towards how things should be perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, perfection, I feel like, is an unattainable word, like in any facet of your life, you know, so like perfect relationship, perfect house, perfect car, whatever, like totally unattainable.
Perfect day.
Because as soon as you gain that, whatever, quote unquote, perfect thing, one part of it is, of course, it's always in flux. So it's never going to stay perfect. But also once you attain it, then you're going to be like, well, but now the next thing is more perfect. Like, so like you get a good, let's say you get a good car, like your perfect car, the car you've always desired in your life. As soon as you have that, now you're going to suddenly covet or envy some better car, like kind of thing, or house or job or anything. So like, I'm not a huge fan of the term perfection, because it's not only unattainable, but it's too much in flux. Because like I've had perfect jobs that were perfect. Like I loved it. It was a great job. Like I couldn't have been happier. But then somebody fucked it up.
You're somebody else.
Well, in the case of this particular one, it was basically like my dean left and I got another dean, and that dean was not as good. So like that job at that time for a certain amount of time, again, so like everything's in flux. So like as soon as one little grain of sand changed in that system, the whole thing changed, and it was never quite the same.
Yeah, or you were never the same.
My perspective had changed because I had the perfection, and so therefore nothing else was going to be able to meet that criteria. So like, yeah, it is also my fault as well.
But also like when you're creating something, like I feel this kind of perfect, you know, oh, this is perfect, you know, but that is more like a sensation. It's like a instinct, you know, it's like you accept it like this. This is enough. But that is also like something you want to tell yourself as well all the time.
I'm so bad at that.
Like I'm enough.
I am horrible at that, because when I have this habit when I'm working where I'll be working and I'm like, this is exactly how I want to express it. And then I'll leave it alone for like a month and I'll come back to it and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's totally wrong.
I changed my mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's because like it was just what I wanted at that moment. But a month later, no, not at all. Not at the least. Or I do the other part, which is I'll work on something and I'm like, it's not there yet. I keep working on it. It's not there yet. I keep working on it. Fuck, I went too far.
Yeah. I lost it.
Yes. All the time. I have this very difficult balance when I'm creating where like I either underwork something because I think like, okay, it's great, I don't want to push it too far, or I might ruin it, or it's already ruined and I'm going to try and save it, and then I just fuck it up even more.
Yeah. And what do you do then? Do you leave it like that, or do you start all over? It depends.
Yeah, it really depends. It depends on the medium, whether it can be undone and reworked or not. It's because some mediums like you can't scrape off and start again. But some mediums, like there are many things that I've worked with that are like, I'll be working on it and I'm like, that is ruined. It is horrible. And then I'll put it on the shelf and I'll come back to it like 6 months later and I'll be like, oh no, I can just do this other thing to it and that'll totally save it. And it does.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, again, it's just like, it's all about sort of timing and perspective. Like, you know, it's like, cause like if I'm it's almost like if I'm too invested at the moment of creation, I don't have, again, sort of, I think like hindsight and distance is like our theme for our conversation here, but like, I don't have enough distance from it to be able to say all it needs is this little thing here.
Yeah.
Because I'm so subjectively invested in it in the moment of creation.
Yeah.
That for me in my artistic practice, I need time and distance to be able to reflect on these things.
I understand. Do you understand also this way of
I can tell you, no, I don't understand. What is it?
What about like, for example, like I'm very like fond of or into mistakes because you have this kind of idea of the production, you know, like the step by step, or you have idea of the outcome, but on the way things often, you know, develop in a different way, and then something comes up like surprise. Often you can also categorize it as mistakes, you know, and I'm a little bit like a groupie of these mistakes. Like when it comes, I'm always like, I celebrate it because I believe that is sometimes where the art or the creative process takes over and art creates itself.
All for it.
Yeah.
I love these kinds of things. Like it's one of those things, like there's a sort of phrase, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's basically like certain, you know, like basically this is, I tell my wife this all the time, but like basically I like a certain amount of consistency, preparation and planning in order to allow for absurdity.
Yeah.
and so like that's my thing. So like I will test a material and try it out and figure out, and I get everything that happens, but then suddenly something will happen that I could never have planned for or thought or tested, and suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's so much better than anything I could have thought of.
Exactly. This happens a lot in a performance.
It happens a lot in everybody's artistic practice.
Except just like then I have a viewers, you know, like viewing this like situation.
But part of it also is the choice to embrace it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of people, when they make these mistakes, will be like, fuck, it's ruined. And they'll never allow that to happen, kind of thing. But I'm a huge advocate of sort of not only finding a way to embrace it, but then even to be like, okay, but how can I now use this to my advantage, to like to utilize it instead of negate it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I often feel like, you know, when you're creating something, you go into, it's a little bit like addicted thing, you know, because you go into this kind of
I'm sorry,
a trance.
What was the word you just said? Addicted?
No, yeah. You become addicted to it.
Addicted. Okay, I got it. An addiction.
Addiction, yeah.
I was hearing like
dick.
Well, no. I was thinking like diptych, like two pieces side by side, like diptych, like triptych. Like I'm like,
yeah, right.
Diptych.
You're not thinking about that. No, I'm joking.
Come on.
Yeah, I know you totally were thinking about that. I was just fooling around.
No, don't get me wrong. Everything's a sexual innuendo to me. I totally get it, but it's fine. But you're addicted to it. I got it.
Yeah, with this kind of, you go into this trance, you know. Yeah, like this hyper-focus trance, a little bit like you are being controlled by some higher, you know. Well,
okay, but that thing you're talking about, I know what you're talking about. I've experienced it. I think almost all of us have experienced it. But the thing about that's hard to attain is because you need to allow to not be influenced by the outside world. So you're not stressed over whatever real life is imparting, and you have the time and the space to devote. Because like I find it very hard to find more than a couple hours to sit in the studio because I've got other obligations to accomplish. And so like being able to find that time, and then even for all practical purposes, a space, because not everybody has a designated studio or anything like this. But the ability to find that time and space, I think, is like one of the most important things. The other one I think is most important is find a community, but that's a different topic.
Time and space, I think it was also like Virginia Woolf, she talks about in a book, the room, that her husband, like gave her, what he said, like, the only thing she needs is like space and money, or, space and time.
Time, space, and money.
Exactly.
These are the three things that artists need.
Yeah.
In no particular order.
Exactly.
Yeah, I find in my life, I can usually have 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Like there was a time in my life when I was in the United Arab Emirates. I had money, I had space, but I had no time.
I understand.
Right now, I have time, I have space, but I have no money.
Exactly. Yeah, I want better space. I can make time. I need money. Yeah.
We all need money. I've never heard a single artist go, you know what? I have plenty of money.
But they exist.
They do. I just don't know any of those people. Those people they're not my friends.
Yeah. So if we talk back about like being this Icelandic artist going to the state, and I was talking about that before. Maybe I didn't finish the sentence or my point. That was like, I found it very interesting that the American student, an art student, they had already made their opinion about the market. Like I'm not going to be with gallery, or like, you know what I mean? Like making the decision, I'm going to work, alongside with my art career, because they had this kind of a dilemma, with the market, with the commercial market in America, in the gallery. But here, I mean, for the longest time, we only had like one commercial gallery, only had like maybe 10 artists, So I never thought about it until I like came to state, and then I also saw so many different kind of gallery and different kind of contemporary art, and I found like, in Iceland, I feel like I've been brought up with the idea of contemporary art as a phenomenon. Even though we make object, it is phenomenon, versus in state, it's often object-based or material-based.
Yes.
Not as in a phenomenon, not as much, you know what I mean? But here I felt, my upbringing here around in the bachelor time, very influenced by phenomena, terms like, yeah. Do you understand? Do you understand that?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's the issue of the art market.
Yeah.
Is such a problem. Like I know that money makes the world go round. I know that money makes the art world go round, but I kind of wish that it didn't.
But for example, here in Iceland, we are trying to build up this kind of market by inviting people with the money, with the possibility to invest in contemporary art. We are very much like, inviting them, and asking them to come, but not that, but I if you talk about like the system, of the art world, it is very important that the state, the grant, don't fade away with it, because that is what happened in the state, in America.
That's the hard thing. It's because it
faded away.
Right now, you all have this, what I see from an outsider's perspective, as very strong governmental support for the arts, whether it's murals, sculpture projects, museums and institutions, as well as your artist salaries. You all have all these great things. if a quote unquote like art market ends up sort of becoming prominent here, a lot of that stuff's going to go away because they're going to go, well, why can't you just sell your work in the market? So like, I wouldn't push that market too hard.
This is so twisted because a lot of opinion of people in general public, you know, they often like when you see like comment on the internet, you know, like when it comes into news, you know, who got the artist salary, often it comes a comment like, why do they need salary? If the art is so good, why they, you know, don't sell it, you know? So often people, even in Iceland, they are like referring good art to good selling. You know what I mean?
As an American, that sounds correct, yes?
Yeah, but we have that here too. And I find it so interesting, you know, just to think about it. I mean, also if you think about Iceland, you know, we are so young, you know, culture, you know, we are so young country, you know. In the 1900s, you know, we were still living in torf houses. You know, in the 1940s, we were publishing our first art story, you know, book. And then in 2010, we did the second, you know what I mean? It's like, we're like a teenager when it comes into understanding culture value. So it is very interesting, you know, it's very interesting, like, where does this come from? You know, the equalness to value contemporary art towards, you know, the selling.
Well, that's the globalization of the arts world. That's what that is. Like, because pre-social media, even pre-internet, let's say, there was much more sort of separate, like different styles of the arts industry occurring in different places. But now everybody is exposed to New York and Art Basel and all the other things. And so like everybody is looking to that as the quote unquote sort of like highest of whatever kind of thing. And so like, yeah, in many ways, I find that globalization unfortunate.
Yeah. And notably, then the art salary here, it is the same as the unemployed benefit. So
wait, but can you get both? Can you get both an art salary and an unemployment benefit?
No.
Little double dip? No. Okay.
So, because you talk about grant and stuff like that, I mean, we have a grant, we have art salary. But I think, you know, it's like, it's very competitive. It's very hard to get it. That means, you know, it is much more of active artists working and grant available for people to survive. And that creates a lot of conflict within colleagues, you know.
Well, I mean, it's I love the idea of the artist salary. I hate the idea that it creates conflict.
Exactly.
And it creates competition.
Yeah. In between, you know, like, oh, this exhibition is not as much as this exhibition, or, you know. Yeah. You know, it's like people are like putting a value into each other project, you know. But if, you know, the state, but it's like by not putting enough money, I mean, then I'm talking about like at least maybe 50% of the application, you know, would get yes. That will, you know, less the conflict a lot, because now it is maybe 10, 15, 20, you know, so it becomes like...
Wait, that's it? Only like 10, 15 or 20 people
No,
year.
Percent, you know.
Oh, percent. Okay, I was like, fuck, that's not a lot.
Yeah. No, it's so low, you know, it's so low percent of people, artists applying to it, that I know so many fucking great artists that don't get it. You know what I mean? I have a lot of projects and I don't get it. You know, it's like...
I don't know much about this artist salary other than just like stories people have told me. I don't understand why they don't just put more money into it.
Exactly.
Well, the reason why I say that though is because I'm also aware that Iceland has done an entire ad campaign.
Exactly.
Trying to draw creative people to Iceland. I mean, they could have taken the money for that and put it into artist salaries. And if then there was better art here, it would have drawn just as many people as a marketing
And
campaign.
if I would just have maybe
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm sorry because they are funding this podcast,
exactly.
So I apologize for the critical remarks. But...
No, it's like if, for example, I often thought about it like if the government would put maybe a funding that you could apply for just to do a PR or something. Because when I'm working towards exhibition, and often I'm doing it, by myself, I don't have a museum or gallery or something in backup. Often it is like self-created, situation, often. And then you don't have the energy. And even if I am, exhibiting in a gallery, I don't have the energy, and also I don't have the ego the 2 weeks before the opening to social media. I mean, I do my best with Instagram, but I don't have the ego to send newsletter, or I do it, but I would do it much better, and I would be able to archive it. And
okay, wait, we've got a way to make this better. Instead of creating more artist grant necessarily, like directly funding arts, what if the Icelandic government offered their PR firms to do public relations for artists?
I'm so vulnerable, and I'm so sincere, and I'm just so fragile, in the process of working towards it.
It's a horrible experience to have to do social media because, like, we need to be vulnerable and we need to be earnest and sincere. But like when we don't get any response, it's crushing.
Yeah, even if I would just get a grant to pay a project manager to work on this, along with me, knowing everything I'm going through and knowing everything about the piece or the project, and be able to access my mailing list and sending it on my behalf.
I love the idea because part of the nature of like, okay, great, the government is investing money in the arts people and their projects, but why not? But if they instead of giving more quote unquote like salary to you, which of course I understand is like some people hate and they don't think it's a good use of government funds and all that kind of stuff, do public relations for these projects like that, because that would elevate everything.
Yeah, and also in Iceland we have so many, in terms of how many we are here, very cool like art festivals, various ones.
You do.
And then everyone who are like producing this festival are not, it's voluntary work. Artists get paid very little. I was participating in one some years ago. I got maybe like 30,000 Icelandic kronas, maybe, I don't know, $250 to make a video, And it was so cool. It was in the middle of COVID, and they were streaming it, and we were sailing in a boat around and doing all this cool stuff. But, if they had a little funding, but if we would have a little bit more and be able to pay someone to, put the streaming all over, because they were all like artists, running this festival, and, so... You know what I mean? It's just like... I
do, because like I've seen this ad campaign that was created by Iceland, and it makes Iceland look stunning and romantic and beautiful. And I mean, it's gorgeous. It's a good campaign, but it didn't seem to involve any local artists. It seemed to say, this is our stunning, beautiful landscape and nature and all these kinds of things, and that other people should come and see it and be inspired by it. But I think if they turned around and said, these are our artists who are making things based on all of these things also. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mean like completely flip the whole thing around, but I'm saying just like be a little bit more inclusive and actually like promote the working artists that are here. That would be amazing. Like, I would love to have a PR person like for my art. I mean, even for 6 months or a year, like, amazing, because like to me that's one of the biggest problems I have with the contemporary art world, which is that like when I was young, when I was in school, the thought was, in America, I should stress this again, but like the thought was, you get a gallery, the gallery does all the public relations stuff for you, and so the artist doesn't do any of that. Now all of that responsibility has fallen back to the artist. It is literally our job. Like, had a conversation earlier about the fact that like when you apply for a grant or a residency or something, they're going to look at your Instagram. That is so sad to me because like I don't like Instagram, like, but also like for me, it takes me like 3 to 4 months to make one piece of art. And that's not the speed of Instagram. So if I'm not making a piece every week or every 3 days, I'm not keeping up with Instagram. So like that whole structure, like to me, doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea where I was going with that, but I feel better having been on my soapbox for a moment there.
Yeah. All the numbers shows that, you know, the more you put into creativity, it comes like triple back into the box, you know, into the society. So there are no lost money, you know what I mean? It's just but the mentality needs to change, you know. And I mean, we are trying to make this same thing, you know, like with the tax money, you know, like in state, you know, if you pay this X amount of money into tax and you can choose if you put it into donation or support some institution or like, you know, or you buy some art or, you know, we are trying to make this, you know, happening here as well. So people would be more like keen putting into, you know, art spaces or buying art, and they get, you know, they can use part of their what is pay to taxes, you know.
A tax write-off is what we would call it in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, you have that in the USA, but then, you know, I see often, but you still have some foundation there, like Warhol, you know, or so, you know, you have something there, you know, and some of the grants are also just, you know, so there are some stuff there, right?
The problem with the granting systems in the United States is the same thing as my problem with the United States, which is the loss of the middle class. So like young artists, emerging artists, you know, low level artists, there's lots of funding for that, you know, $500, $750, tons of those grants.
Okay.
There are tons of the $1 million grants, the $10 million grants, all the big grants. The problem is there's very little in the middle.
Okay.
So lots of rich, powerful, influential stuff that'll, you know, support an artist for decades. And then there's lots of like little tiny things that just sort of are not enough to actually make a difference.
I understand.
And there's very little in the middle. And that is a problem. But I mean, that's just, you know, the loss of the middle class in America as well. You know, rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. Same things with artist grants. There are rich artist grants and there are poor artist grants, but there's not enough of the middle ones.
Yeah. And then there was also like talking about that, like with the education, because it's very expensive to study a master in visual art. And then you're putting all your money into your education. And then you come out and you own a lot of student loan. And then you need to go and pay it. And then you can't really pay it off with your art, you know, income, because there are no income. And then it is like, and then the galleries and museums don't make this kind of criteria of, you know, you need to have education. So you're just like flipping the coin, you know, should I try just to survive as an artist and get in there? Or should I educate myself and try to, you know, pay off my student loan with salary coming from somewhere else and where I educated myself? This is a problem, because then we're just going to get one type of artist, you know, educating themselves. It's just a upper class student, you know, with a good, you know, support system.
As I'm sitting here as a white American male, having gotten a good education. So
and
like,
then,
I'm an example of that, yes.
But then is the dilemma of it is also the education creates value. So my point is that we need the education because then we create a value to our field.
Correct.
So I am I don't want people to not think of going to educate themselves in art, because I think it's very important to higher the value to the field in general, you know. But like, for example, if I just talk from Icelandic point of view, my point is that the government is in response, because the government, they accept this school to be, capable to educate, artists, and choose the creative, student to be accepted. And it's very hard to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they accept you also to take a lot of loan to pay these expensive studies. And then you come out of it and you need to pay it, but they have a responsibility. I see myself also as an employed by the government. I am creating a cultural value for the generation to come. So what I would like to see the government to take a responsibility and supporting the artists coming from higher education for some, years, a support, like a salary. I would just, demand the government to pay me for do my art that I've been educating myself and taking loan for. To pay off my student loan just for the first, 5 or 10 years while you are, fighting yourself up the ladder in this, very complex, field. That I think should be, way to do it, So also for maintain the differences, we want to educate, all kind of artists, coming from all kind of backgrounds. You know what I mean? We don't want to have our artists just the same species, or the same, the same,
homogenized.
Yeah. So it should be like the government should think about like how they want to see the artist in 50 years or 100 years. And then with this kind of development, we are wiping out, so many creative, minds.
But you're making a huge leap of assumption that the government gives a shit.
Or they don't take a responsibility.
Tomato, tomato.
It's like, we are like educating ourselves like as much as, a doctor or, and.
But do they support doctors?
They give them a job in a hospital.
Okay. But then, yeah, okay. If that kind of thing exists for other professions here.
This should be just ultimately applied by the government because we are working for the government.
It would be amazing if there was, because like in America, there is a thing that if you go in as maybe it's any form of an education. If you get an education and then you go work for a nonprofit organization for, I think, 10 straight years full time, that your student loan is wiped out.
So can we make this kind of organization like art studio, like complexity of organization that just creates art, like a...
As long as it's like a legal nonprofit.
Exactly.
Yes.
Then you could go through the system.
Yeah, but there's certain things that criteria have to meet it. But like I have a friend who like worked at a nonprofit museum. And he hasn't gotten there yet, but he will get his student loan wiped out after he meets all the criteria. So I mean, these kinds of things do exist. The idea of like, go get educated, and then if you put the time and energy into that industry, that your student loan can be taken away, basically, or wiped out, kind of thing. It does exist, but like, at least in America, they make it so difficult to achieve those goals. Like I had the stupidity, because I didn't even know about this opportunity. I worked for a nonprofit for 9 years full time. And the year after I quit, somebody said, if you would work for a nonprofit for 10 years, you can have your student. I'm like, God fucking damn it, one more year. If I just put in one more year.
Could you not just hire yourself again?
No, because they make you start again. So it has to be 10 consecutive years.
This should be taught in the school.
It should have been. It really should have been.
Like, how can you fight the system?
Oh, God. Are you kidding? I remember one night in grad school, we actually sat down and said, okay, what country can we move to that will not track our social security number, so they can't track us down to make us repay our student loans.
Okay.
We came up with Panama was the best country. That was like reasonably first world country.
You were so right.
They wouldn't track us. So basically we would never have to pay our student loans back. But of course we could never come back in the United States. But, we actually put thought and effort into like, how could we skip out on our student loans?
Yeah, we had a big scandal about the Panama, Icelandic rich people were like hiding their money there.
Yeah, and that's where we wanted to go. That's what we had come up with.
Yeah. So not so far out.
No, not indeed. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you go, we would like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the conversation. We would also appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, or studio mates, anybody with an interest in the arts and creative industries. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community, both today and for the future, is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by CushAudio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Arts Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.